What's up? What's up? What's up?
What's going on, man?
Not a whole lot, man. How are you doing?
Good, dude. I'm a little tired. Last night, my girlfriend Sierra and we went to the Jack Harlow concert in DC.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it was a pretty good show. The show was at the Anthem, and it's each time Jack's come to DC, we've seen him at like a smaller venue predating back to like 2017, I guess. So it's been cool to see over the years he progressively gets like bigger venues and everything. Because the last place we saw him in the DC area was the Fillmore, and that was 2,500 people. And last night it was sold out with 6,000 people. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, it was a really good show. I got to see a few of my buddies showed up. Some of them I wasn't expecting to see, so it was really cool to see them. And then, as far as the concert itself, his collective, like, private garden, they have their own group within that they're just called the Homies. So they opened up for him, and they did like a 20-minute set or something, and then the City Girls came on, and that was pretty interesting, just because I don't really listen to that kind of music, and I wasn't really going for them. I was just going to see Jack, but they were putting on a show, and the crowd was really into it, which was pretty interesting to see. And then Jack came out, obviously, and I thought his set was really good. It opened up with like a movie, like a cinematic play almost.
Yeah, I must have been on Twitter or something, but I did see like just the opening little video, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. And I had sort of seen it bouncing around on Twitter as well, but for the sake of I had only seen bits of it. I didn't really know what it was going to lead to and stuff. So, but that was really cool. When the video stopped, I can't remember how the video stopped actually with the first one, but anyways, when the music started, it was like this big white curtain, and he was behind it, and it had the spotlight was on him, but it was just a shadow. And he was doing "Talk of the Town," the opener on his last album. So I know you like that song.
Yeah, I feel like there was really no other way to open that show, because that song is just such a really fucking cool opener for an album. Yeah, I'm glad it was a good show though, and that was your first time at the Anthem, right? So you enjoyed the venue,
bro. It was a really cool venue, and the getting in was super easy. We were walking. Parking was a little tricky at first, but then we were walking beside the waterfront, and these people were saying, if you're going to the show, come over here, but that was for general admissions. So I asked one of the guys, I'm like, if we have seats, and he sort of pointed us in the right direction, and it was so easy. I couldn't believe how open it was when I walked in there, because like I said, the last time I went to a show in the area was at the Anthem, and that was the concept of the venue is the same, with the balconies up top and then like general admission in the main floor area, but I couldn't believe how open it was. And they had a bar in like each section, and they had plenty of bathrooms and everything. It's a really nice place. I'd definitely go back.
Yeah, it's when you go in and there's not filled up yet, it looks so huge. But I didn't realize 6,000. That's big, but I actually thought it would be a little bit more than that capacity.
Yeah, I thought for some reason I had 7,500 in my head. I thought that's how many people were going to be in there, but I mean, it was still. The whole place was filled up pretty good, and I don't know, really cool show. He had a live band as well. They came out for like this, I don't want to say second set of his, but he did like maybe 5 or 6 songs, and then the screen they had behind him, he sort of raised that up, and then behind that was his like childhood home, I guess, and it had they had like the garage door open, and the band was in the garage playing music. It was really sweet, and they were jamming. He had a guy on the bass, on the keys, and then a drummer, and it was really nice. And it reminded me a lot of his Tiny Desk show that he did with the live band, because I thought that was I think that's an underrated video. I don't think enough people have seen that, because I don't know, I just love when live or like an orchestra almost, like the live band is intermingled with hip hop and rap music. I think that's really neat.
Yeah, that's really cool that he brought a band out with him. I definitely wouldn't have expected that. What was the best song of the night? Or what was your favorite song of the night?
Favorite song. I don't know. Because I've been like a fan of his for a while. I like his older stuff a little more. I think it's just like it's almost sort of nostalgic compared to like how big he's gotten and everything. So he only did like a medley of his older songs, I'd say, where he only did a verse or like half a verse for some of them, and then picked up the next one really quick. But I thought his opening to Tyler Hero was pretty cool, and I wouldn't even say that's one of my favorite songs from his, but I really like how that song sounded last night. And then I would say Route 66 was pretty cool too. But yeah.
Yeah, I wish I could have made it out to that, but was the general admission line long?
On the outside?
Yeah.
No.
Really?
But we got there at like, the doors opened at 6:15, I think, and I think the show was supposed to start at 7:45, and we got there a little after 7. And I mean the general admission outside like the line outside didn't look that busy. But I mean when we got there 45 minutes early, there was a decent amount of people there.
Yeah, I guess that's the main thing I was worried about, was just a super long general admission line. But I guess the fact that it was during the week probably deterred a lot of people.
Yeah, that's and the guy who had pointed us in the right direction for the entrance to the venue, I had asked him, I was like, is this, because it was pretty packed with all the restaurants and everything. Like, it looked like it was a Friday night or something for how many people were down there. All the restaurants looked full, and the amount of people that were like hanging outside the venue and stuff. But yeah, I think there were even though it was sold out, and I'm sure there were people who had tickets who just didn't end up going or bought tickets to sell tickets or whatever. But I think general admission in that venue, you can kind of go wherever. Because I think there were people, because we were sitting up top, we had actual seats. But I think there were people who had general admission tickets who, it was almost like standing, like quote unquote standing room only behind our seats. And I think those people might have had just general admission tickets. But yeah, I mean, I was happy to not be like in the pit, because every time we go to his shows, we've always been in the pit. So this was like, I guess technically our second show of being in a seat and being able to like sit comfortably and enjoy the show and everything. But yeah, 10 out of 10 experience.
Awesome. That's good. I just bought Arctic Monkey tickets, but they're not coming around till next September. But I jumped on early because I got some kind of certified pre-sale or something, so I just jumped on it right away. But I'm already looking forward to that. They're going to be up in Columbia, Maryland,
correct?
Yeah, at the Merriweather.
I've never been to a show there.
I saw the Allman Brothers there a long time ago with my dad. And it's a pretty cool place. I mean, it's just a big amphitheater, you know. Once you've seen one, you've kind of seen them all.
Yeah.
But should be good.
Yeah, they have an album coming out soon, right?
Yeah, October 21st. I know they dropped a couple singles already, but I'm avoiding them until I can listen to the whole thing altogether.
I remember you saying that, because that you said they've dropped a couple singles.
Mm-hmm.
I had one pop up on my Spotify. Maybe, I don't know when their last one dropped. Maybe last week or something like that. I had one pop up, and I remember hearing you say that you were gonna wait until the album came out. So like, I'm gonna wait too.
Yeah, and one of the singles is the first track on the album, and I don't know. Like, I think about their last album and how much I just love the opening track as a part of the whole thing, and hearing that before, I don't think I would have really got it as much as I did when I heard the whole thing together. So,
plus it, I don't know, and I guess it depends what kind of artist it is that is putting out an album, and they're putting out singles to promote the album. But I like to think the intro to an album really, I think, sets the stage, you know, for what the album's going to be. Like, I think about Ultralight Beam on Life of Pablo. Like, that's such a crazy opener, and if that would have came out as a single or something, it wouldn't have hit the same listening to it in the album for the first time, you know?
Right, yeah, because you would already knew what was coming. So, it's been hard, though. it's definitely been hard because it keeps popping up because obviously my Spotify knows I'm a pretty big fan, so it just keeps trying to tell me to listen to it. But
So it's coming out in a couple weeks?
yeah, 21st.
Oh, yeah. That's next Friday, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
That's exciting, man. Speaking of Fridays, welcome to the Good Fridays Podcast. My name is Josh.
I'm CJ.
And we're glad to have everyone along for the ride.
We appreciate everybody who tunes into us weekly.
And we will be dropping weekly episodes on Fridays to get your weekend going.
Yeah, we appreciate you spending your Fridays with us because I think everybody knows Friday is the best day of the week.
Correct.
So you saw the Jack show, but like that was during the week. So did you do anything good over the weekend?
Let's see. This weekend, what do we do? We're having a little housewarming event this coming weekend. So last weekend we spent a lot of time getting the house ready for that and everything. That was most of our weekend, to be honest, just because it is a housewarming. So the place we're in now, we bought a house a few months ago, and we're just now sort of being able to make it our own, I guess, just with how busy we've been and everything. So we're finally getting around to cleaning everything up and making it look real nice.
A party, I feel like, is always a good way to kind of get all of those chores done that you are just completely pushing off and like making the house look nice. I feel like it's a good incentive to kind of actually do it.
Yeah, and it gives you a deadline because, like you said, if you keep pushing things back and you don't really have something that's holding you accountable for making sure you get it done besides yourself, if you're that determined, you know what I mean? But definitely having a deadline that we know, all right, we have to have this and this and this done by this day. We got to make sure we have, all that sorts of stuff figured out. But yeah, and then on Sunday I played basketball again. That was a really fun time. I did roll my ankle, which I wasn't happy about, but today it's feeling a little better, and I'm planning on not resting next Sunday, and I will be out there to play again. Just because, like I said last week, that's one thing I look forward to every week is just getting out and hooping for a couple hours.
Absolute warrior.
I appreciate that. I'm a soldier, man.
I think if I rolled my ankle playing basketball, I'd probably hang up the shoes for at least 2 months.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm just going to take it real easy on this next Sunday because I don't want to re-aggravate it. And then because I know if I took 2 weeks off, I know I'd feel a lot better. But, man, I can't. I got to get in the lab, you know what I'm saying?
This past weekend, I had the opportunity to just do absolutely nothing, which I don't get very much, not as much as I used to. And God, it felt so good. The weather was super nice all weekend. And Saturday, I think I sat and just drank some beers and listened to music from probably 10:30 in the morning till it got dark. So
Let's go.
It was just like a perfect day for sure.
It was really nice on Saturday. I forgot. I did end up. I went golfing Saturday morning at my local 9, and that was really nice. It's been a while since I'd gone out there, but like you said, it was gorgeous, man. And Sierra, she and her friends, they were having like a little yard sale, so gave me an excuse to get out on the golf course. And
yeah, my girlfriend went on a trip with a couple of her friends up to the mountains, which I'm sure was just as beautiful and nice to be up there. But yeah, I just had some time to myself, so got some beers, just chilled out on the porch. But I just feel like I used to really take it for granted how many weekends I had free. And now, just with things being booked up all the time, like I don't have free weekends like that very often. So it was nice to really take full advantage and just completely relax and turn off my brain for a while.
Yeah, that is really nice. And we're sort of going through the same thing with it just seems like every weekend you're doing something. We're either going down to Blacksburg for a football game, or we've got a family event we got to go to, or a wedding, or different things like that. And I mean, recently, just trying to get the house cleaned up for this event we're having this coming weekend. It's going to be a few more weekends before we can just really relax. I think once maybe November or December hits, we'll be able to wind it down a little bit, you know?
Yeah, I feel like the holidays are always kind of a wild time, and yeah, with football season getting down to try to get to some games, and yeah, it just seems like you go from not having any plans to all of a sudden you're just booked out, which I never thought that would be my life, but I guess it's happening right now. So
right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, would you say it's like, does it bring stress upon you to not be able to have a little bit of time to yourself on the weekends or anything like that, especially if you're working like all week? And because I know at least when I was at school, I would almost look forward to the weekend some, because usually I wouldn't have homework to do, and I could either go hang out with friends or I could just kick it at the house for a while, you know what I'm saying?
yeah, I mean, I am definitely someone who loves to be alone and loves to just kind of have time to just stop and just relax in whatever environment. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's always fun stuff I have planned. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like I'm doing work on the weekends. I'm always having a good time and seeing people maybe I don't see as often. So it's always, it's all good stuff and it's all very important. But man, something about that, just like waking up on a Saturday and having absolutely nothing to do, and like you don't even have to leave the house, like pre-shopping to get your stuff ready and stuff, like that is just a perfect day to me.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I love doing stuff, but I mean, like I was saying, there's nothing like getting a day or two to just sort of chill, and let your mind reset and everything like that.
Yeah, just stopping to smell the roses, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would say even during the week, like whenever I feel like I'm getting stressed out or something, maybe not whenever I'm getting stressed out, but I just find myself looking up at the sky. You know what I mean? And I work outside, so I'm constantly outdoors. But if I'm ever in a moment where I'm like, I've got a lot on my mind, or I'm in a little stressful situation or something like that, I'll just sort of look up at the sky, and I don't know, it brings things, it updates my perspective, especially if I'm in like I don't know if it's a cloudy mind state, but I've just got a lot of stuff on my mind, you know what I mean? I can just look up and see how massive the sky is, and kind of puts things in perspective in the sense that it makes me feel like everything that I have on my mind in the grand scheme of things is on a small scale, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely do the same thing. While I don't work outside, but I do generally work from home. But yeah, I can definitely find myself like starting to get really stressed out and freaking out about all kind of things. And then I can just like take a step outside, just even if I just like go out and get the mail or something, and just take a second and look up. I definitely see what you're saying. I mean, that's pretty much all I did this weekend was just stare at clouds, So,
Yeah.
And that's something I used to do when I was a kid a lot. And I feel like I kind of just not got away from it, because I would still spend a lot of time outside and that, but like specifically like, taking moments to like look up and kind of think about everything in that way is something I feel like I got away from for a long time, but definitely do a lot more now than I used to.
Yeah, I think people in general nowadays, and I could be wrong, but I feel like most people aren't. Everybody's looking down. They're either looking down at where they're walking, or they're stuck looking at their phone, or I don't know. If they're sitting down, they're looking at their. It's like no matter what you're doing, people are doing nowadays. I feel like it's centered around their phone.
These kids and their damn phones,
bro, it's crazy, man. And I'm not perfect either, because I'll find that's another reason. Like I'll just put my phone down, take a second, look around, man. Look at life, bro. So if you're out in public, like you're going grocery shopping or something, or you're at like the farmer's market or whatever, and you see like your former classmate from high school or middle school or whatever, are you saying what's up? And I guess it could be like your high school teacher or something like that too. Are you going to say hi to them and talk to them, or are you going to like avoid them?
9 times out of 10, I'm going to avoid them. Really depends. Like, there was definitely some teachers I had that were a big enough influence that I would definitely go back and say I'd actually look forward to seeing them. But actually, I've been helping out around the house at my parents' place for the past couple of weeks. So I just came back to like where I went to high school at and stuff, and it's definitely been happening a lot more because like now I don't live here anymore, so it doesn't happen to me as much. But yeah, most of the time, like if I go into a store with my girlfriend who went to the same high school as me, we'll have a competition to see who sees the least amount of people they know, and the more people you see, like that's worse for your score, because overall I can't stand it, to be honest with you. What about you?
So wait, you're like, whenever you go out, are you seeing people you know?
The past couple weeks, yeah, since I've been back here.
Like every time?
Not every time, but it's probably happened like on at least 50% of the trips I've been out since I've been here.
Is it happening more times than it's not happening?
Probably right around the same amount.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know. For me, I would say, I mean, sort of like you said, I think it would all depend on who it was, but I feel like for the most part, I'd be willing to say what's up, ask them how they've been or something like that. Unless they catch me like in a bad mood or something, or I'm trying to get, if I'm like busy trying to get stuff done, or I'm on my way somewhere, might not say anything to them and try to avoid that conversation just because I'm in a hurry. But I would say, for the most part, if I see somebody I know in the grocery store and they're in like one aisle, I might go down that aisle and say what's up versus avoiding it and trying to find my way back in. And I think for teachers, for most part, I would say hi to, well, there's probably a handful of teachers I would say hi to. Definitely, I would say I could see myself talking to one of my former classmates or I could see myself talking to one of my former classmates more than maybe one of my former teachers, depending on who it was.
I just feel like the majority of people that I got along with in high school, I'm still pretty close friends with. There's like very few. There's a couple, obviously, that you kind of just fall off, but just the amount of people from there that really were friendly enough to say hi in a grocery store, like I still talk to them pretty frequently. So yeah, I try to avoid people most of the time, because a lot of times I just don't want that small talk, like, how you been, kind of like conversation that isn't ever going to lead to anything. So, but if I see someone and we like make eye contact, I'll say what's up, but I try to just kind of cut it off as soon as I can, because I really don't want a conversation.
So you're not interested to see like how people are doing or anything like that?
Not really, no. As far as people I went to high school with, no offense if somebody finds this that I went to high school with, I'm sure you're great, but
yeah, you're listening to this podcast, you're a great person.
Yeah, and if you come up to me and say, "Hey, I heard the Good Fridays pod," we can talk. I'll say what's up.
Yeah, I'll give you $1 if you come up to me and say that.
I'll match it.
Probably only on Venmo though. I don't think I could do cash. But I don't know. For me, I don't know. Like in high school, well, I'd say in college I got better at like my conversational skills and stuff like that. And I feel like thinking about that now, there are people there are people I wish I had actual conversations with when I was in high school. Not like I think of somebody and be like, man, I wish I talked to them more. But if I saw so-and-so and I never really got a chance to get to know them or something in high school, and have zero idea what they're doing right now, I'd probably go up and ask them how they're doing or what kind of things they've been up to, and just ask them where they're at in their life, you know. But I also get the aspect of like not necessarily caring, especially if it's just small talk and it's not going to lead to anything.
I also just, and this could be a kind of a false assumption, but I assume because I don't want anyone coming up to me and doing that nobody else wants me to come up and do that to them. Which, like I said, could definitely not be real. I could just be kind of making that up. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's not like I was like bullied and just like fucking hate everybody from my high school. I just like really, if we weren't that close, I'm not gonna kind of pretend we were close now, you know, just because we knew each other. And at this point, we really honestly don't know each other because it's been so long. That being said, like college friends, definitely. I feel like I made more like meaningful connections with people in college that I didn't keep up with, if that makes sense. Like I made connections in both high school and college, but the high school ones it was like a smaller group, so I keep up with them more. But there's plenty of people in college that like I definitely would want to talk to, even if I just ran into them.
Yeah, plus I feel like in high school versus college, you're in a, and I guess it depends what kind of high school you go to and what kind of college you go to, but at least for me in high school, I was in a smaller space, and at college, I was at a bigger space. And my whole point in saying that is in high school, I was around those people for longer because, you know what I mean, it's a smaller space, and I'm with them 8 hours a day or whatever. And then at college, I'm with you if I run into you or if we made plans to hang out, you know what I mean? Because my degree wasn't in a degree where I had a ton of friends in, you know what I mean? A lot of my friends were engineers or business majors, different things like that. But yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a good example would be like there's people like that were really your friends in college that like if I saw them I would at least say hi, you know. But I think about like friends of a friend in high school, like that would I would, you know, completely ignore them in that situation. So, but I think that has a lot to do with it. Like what you're saying is the majority of time, other than the ones that are in the same major as you're making plans to hang out with them. So if it's somebody you have a connection with that you hung out a lot of times with, you did that on purpose as opposed to being kind of shoved into it in a high school setting.
Yeah, I feel like it would definitely be more intentional in college versus high school. But what if you saw somebody from one of your classes that you might have only said like 2 or 3 things to, or you guys worked in like a group project for 2 weeks or something like that, and you saw them out? Would you say anything to them, or would you keep it pushing?
Keep it pushing, but I wouldn't be upset if they approached me, you know. Like I don't think I would actively try to avoid them. But also I hate that game of like when 2 people see each other that are kind of on that level and you're both kind of just like figuring out if the other person is going to say something or if they know who you are. But like, yeah, I don't know. I definitely wouldn't be upset, especially like a group project, because I feel like you can kind of go through it with your group, especially as we got into like senior year and stuff.
I gotcha. So have you ever had anybody, and like, I'm thinking that for me personally, if I saw somebody, like I made eye contact with somebody, or I saw somebody was in like the same area as me who I wasn't really close with, but say they made the move to come talk to me or say what's up or whatever, I feel like those encounters that I've had, I usually left the conversation being like happy that I spoke to that person or happy that that person approached me. You know what I mean? I don't necessarily think that I felt like a negative way towards them, but maybe I had like a preconceived notion that made me think that they wouldn't want to talk, and then they approached me, and then we end up having a good conversation or something like that. I feel like that's happened to me a handful of times, and I think because of those experiences I've had, it makes me more open to wanting to be the first one to make that step. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I guess I've had it both ways, you know, but most of the time when most of the time when I come into contact with someone like, and they approach me, I've definitely had it like just go bad because it's like they come over and they're like, "Hey man, how is everything?" I'm just like, "It's okay."
Okay.
Things are okay. And this could also just be me not wanting to do it, and just kind of having a bad attitude about the whole situation. But I guess I've had some positive, but I've definitely had some where I left and I just like felt that like gross.
Like, why did you talk to me?
Yeah. But you can't, I don't want to be like a dick and just tell them like fuck off as much as sometimes I want to.
I got you.
But yeah. Like I said, college friends, definitely different. There's like kind of a different line, I guess, but it's the same thing. Like, this actually even happened when I like go down for games and stuff. Like I'll I'll see people that I either like had a couple classes with or I just recognize, like there's just those people that you recognize. But I never say anything because it's just like, what would you even talk about? It's like half the time, like I'm not even 100% sure of their name. So it's like, there's really not much to do if you don't know their name.
Yeah, especially if you don't have like any form of rapport. Yeah, that's what I was curious about. If it was like a classmate who you saw like all semester or something, but you guys never really talked or anything like that. But you know that you recognize them, and if they see you, they recognize you. But
a lot of times I think that kind of just gets like the classic like half nod, half like fake smile and nod, or just like a kind of raise your eyebrows, just like kind of acknowledge them in some way. So I don't know. But again, you don't want to just be like staring at someone and then they don't remember you. So it's kind of a weird game you play.
Yeah, I got you. Unless they hit you with the, yo, we were in freaking biology together. What was your name again? And then you start having like this pointless conversation.
Right. Then you say your name and they're like, "Oh yeah, bro, that class was cool." And then you're like, "Yeah."
See ya.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey man, just get the fuck out of here.
I gotcha.
But shout out all the people that I see that I know, and maybe they recognize me, but neither of us do anything. Those are my favorite interactions, because then you can at least pretend like maybe they remembered.
Yeah, I got you. And anybody listening, say what's up to me. I'll say what's up back. No doubt.
100%. Even if I fucking hate you, I'll still talk to you if you listen. Would you say that you're a fan of when artists will sample other music in theirs?
Yes.
I feel like some people might feel a little bit differently about that.
No, I think you're right. I think I feel like people who are like and I could be completely off on this generalization, but I feel like people who consider them like music connoisseurs or like music snobs, you know what I mean? I feel like those are the kind of people that are like, you're stealing somebody else's art, make your own stuff and things like that. I think that's super played out. But at the same time, I think samples can go wrong. You know what I mean? I think there's a difference between sampling somebody or sampling music to create your own song and then sampling somebody else's song as like you're pretty much just remixing their song, but it sounds the exact same. Like, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think there's like a real art form to sampling, and there's a lot more that goes into it than I think a lot of people realize. And yeah, I know what you're saying. There's definitely like songs that exist that pretty much just take an entire instrumental from a different song and just put different lyrics and like maybe a different cadence over it. But I mean, like a really like well done sample, I think, is part of what sets great producers aside from just like SoundCloud people. You know what I mean? Like a few that come to mind, like obviously Kanye has like a super extensive like. I've always been a fan of Logic's sampling. Trying to think of a couple others that come to mind. Anyone that jumps off the page to you?
I would say sampling is what got me really interested in Kanye's artistry, because he came up as a producer, but he was also rapping, but nobody wanted to hear him rap. They only wanted his beats. And I feel like he really changed the space with sampling, and I could be wrong about this, but at least for me, he was one of the first people who I remember like sampling things, and the way he would flip them is just crazy. And like this, like that old early 2000s, like the soulful samples, like I dig those songs with the super soulful samples and everything. I don't know, it's like ear candy to me. And it could be, even I could listen to an instrumental that's like that and just have it on repeat, you know what I mean? And I'm not exactly sure what it is about it, but yeah, Kanye specifically, I just think his samples are great. And he's been doing it for such a long time. And sampling in general, I'm a really big fan of the question I asked you about it, like being frowned upon or whatever. I don't know. I feel like more than ever, like in music today, more than ever, I think sampling's at like an all-time high, at least in my lifetime. But I do feel like it's getting to the point where some artists are literally copy and pasting the same song and maybe just changing the way the drum sounds or the 808 sound just a tiny bit, but it's still practically the same song. And I don't really like that, because I don't feel like they're creating anything new with what they're doing.
Yeah, I think music production in general is like a really wild thing. And a lot of times those guys don't get a lot of the credit. You know what I mean? Like when a song comes out by an artist, you know it just by that artist. And now there's definitely a lot of like really famous producers that, you know, are kind of like household names. But I think a lot of the time, you know, it's a lot more of like a team effort. And there's a lot of people that work on each song that you hear that you might just know as like just a Kanye song or just a Drake song or something.
I feel like I don't know, like I was saying, at least I really like samples, but I like samples that I don't know I don't know what they are necessarily, you know what I mean? Like Jack Harlow, his last big hit was sampled by Fergie. Well, it was a Fergie sample, and I liked it, but the samples I like are things I've never heard before, and I'll hear them in a song and it's super catchy, and I'll look up the song, and there's this website called Who Sampled, and I'll look up the song and then type Who Sampled with it, and it'll show me the original song, and then I'll go listen to that original song. So in those instances where I'm finding new music, I think it's paying homage to the original creator of that sound, and that's one thing why I really enjoy samples. I've actually got a playlist on my Spotify where I'll go through songs that I have, and I'll find samples with them, and then I structure my playlist so it's the sample used. And sometimes, like if I'm with my friends or something and they haven't heard specific songs, I'll ask them, be like, hey, does this sound familiar? And then they're like, oh, this does sound familiar. And then I'll try to see if they can guess which song sampled that, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you play them the original song and then try to, you know, where have you heard this before? I've always, like, it's really cool to me that, and this happened to probably not a lot, but a handful of times, where I'll just be listening to music and I'll kind of stumble upon something organically, and I can just know, like, I know I've heard it before, and then like trying to go back and dig up like where it is that I know that from is always a pretty cool thing. Like I remember I was just eating dinner with my girlfriend, and we just like threw on like a dinner time jazz, and I ended up hearing like a Mac Miller sample in there, which was like really, really cool. Or a friend of mine, shout out Will, showed me this reggae song he had been bumping to, and as soon as I heard it, I realized that it was the outro to the Kanye song "Famous."
Oh yeah.
Which is like really, really cool. But it was just cool to kind of stumble upon it more organically. But yeah, I do the same thing. I love to just like, if I hear a really catchy sample, I love to go back and try to find it.
Yeah, that song is "Dust to Sound Boy" by Super Beagle, that Kanye used in the Famous sample.
Okay, yeah, and then the outro is just called like "Bam Bam," I think.
Yeah.
I think that's what, yeah.
Bum, bum, bum. Yes, sir.
Yeah. That song is, I like it. It's, some other really cool samples that come to mind. Kendrick, Money Trees. That's a Beach House song.
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's Silver Soul by Beach House. Logic, I Am the Greatest is a Grizzly Bear song. Do you ever listen to Grizzly Bear?
I'm not familiar.
It's early 2000s rock band, kind of, I guess, indie rock band. But yeah, that was the same thing. Like a friend of mine showed me this Grizzly Bear song, and I immediately was like, where have I heard this before? And I had to dig it up all the way that it was on a Logic album.
That is, and I also, there was what was the name of that Logic album with the orange cover art? It was supposed to be his last album.
No Pressure.
No Pressure. Yeah, he had a song on there where it was that same instance where you ironically stumble upon, you're just listening to regular music and then you pick up something that you know you've heard before. And there was one of his songs where he took a sample from an Outkast song, and that sample doesn't come in until like halfway through the song. And when I heard it, I was like, man, that sounds so sweet, you know?
Yeah, it's those horns, man.
Yes.
There's some smooth shit going on for sure. Yeah, those are the ones that just like really jump off the page to me. I guess just because that's some of the times I like found it organically. But yeah, I love just like, I also kind of love just Googling an artist I really like and seeing like when was any of their songs sampled, and then kind of checking that out. Like that's how I found I found out that Kendrick song is a Beach House sample.
So it's almost like, and I could be wrong, it's like a reverse search almost, instead of like hearing something and then, well, what I consider reverse, because that's how I discover samples, but I never thought of that before. So you'll think of an artist, go to their discography or something, and then you're able to see, I'm assuming you probably use the same website I use.
Yeah, I just like, and the Beach House one really came after those pictures of them with Kanye came out, because I was like kind of curious if they'd ever done anything in the hip hop world before.
That's right.
So I think I just Googled like, was a Beach House song ever sampled by a hip hop artist, and then obviously like someone as big as Kendrick Lamar will pop up right away that he used one of their songs. So
one of his biggest songs too, I feel like.
Yeah,
the song's gotten a lot of plays.
Yeah, so I guess that's my sampling fun fact, is that's one of my favorite Beach House songs.
That's sweet. And for any audience member listening in, feel free to send us any samples that you enjoy, or different songs that use a sample that makes you feel a certain way about a song. We would love to hear your feedback on anything on that route.
Yeah. If it hasn't already been super obvious, we both enjoy music pretty thoroughly, and we definitely want to expand our library as much as possible. So, yeah, always looking for recommendations.
And we will be having a Good Fridays Spotify playlist put together. We'll probably end up throwing one on Apple Music too, possibly, but we're both Spotify users, and most of my friends are Spotify users as well.
If you're an Apple Music user, it's time to make the change.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what you're still doing on Apple Music, to be honest with you. The playlisting on Spotify is far superior. That's all I really need, bro. The playlisting. It's easier to discover new music, and I could just be, because I haven't used Apple Music in like 3 to 4 years. Maybe they've stepped up their playlist game some, but I remember when I was using it back in the day, it was so hard for me to find new music. Every playlist I would found is just songs that are already saved in my library.
Yeah, the Spotify algorithm, it has me, dude. Like, it'll just keep showing me things that I really, really enjoy. I kind of want to pivot the conversation a little bit, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, Spotify, run us a brand deal, please.
Yeah.
Go ahead, CJ.
Well, actually, Spotify just gave us $50 million to be exclusive.
Oh, okay. Well, shout out to Spotify. You guys are listening exclusively on Spotify now. This is not Apple Music.
Do you think that we are growing up in like a really good age for music or a really bad age for music? Because I think there's a lot of older people, and I know your parents are pretty big music heads in their own right, and mine are too. What do you think about like the state of music right now?
I would say it's hard for me to speak on music as a whole. I would say, however, that I don't know. I think it just depends on how you look at it. I think in the sense of the average person's attention span is getting shorter. I think that has a negative, a negative factor on how people are digesting music nowadays, and it sort of puts the artist in a spot where, and I guess it depends on the artist, but in my mind, it puts the artist in a spot to where they're making music for their audience, and if they know that their audience only wants a 2.5 minute song versus a 3 minute song or a 4 minute song or a really long outro or something like that, I feel like it might take away from how the artist wants their art to be consumed. But it sort of goes back to the artist himself. But then musicians that are tied to labels and they have to fulfill a certain criteria on their contract, or their labels really, the artist is in a position where they can freely do what they want with their music, and the label sort of forcing you to work one way. I don't know. I think it's hard for me to say, like I said, music as a whole, if it's in a bad space or not. But I do think audiences, like the average person who's listening to music, doesn't want to listen to a song longer than 3 minutes, which is unfortunate. But I would say I like the current state of hip hop right now. We're in an interesting time, and I talk about hip hop because that's probably my most listened to genre. But we're in an interesting time right now where this year a lot of artists have seen big drops in their first week sales, and I don't think anybody really knows why. I know in years past, artists used to be able to sell their merch in bundles. So if somebody bought a hoodie, they bought a song, whereas now the artist is only getting sales based on streaming numbers and people who are going out and buying the CDs and things like that. So I do think that's weird for hip hop, but I would say I think country music is on a resurgence right now. I don't think many people are listening to hits or like pop country anymore, which has sort of ran the airwave on the country music stations for like since I can remember. But you've got artists out now. Zach Bryan, he's one of the biggest, or one of the like rapidly rising country artists right now, and his music is, you don't really hear it on the radio. I think he has one song that's just recently they're starting to cycle on the radio, but his music is pretty raw. You know, it's his voice, it's a guitar, and it's rare in most of his songs where, at least from what I've heard, that there's a whole lot going on other than him singing and the guitar and things like that. So, I don't know. I think it just depends what you're listening to and how you feel about music in general, I guess.
Yeah, I guess I was also getting more about the fact, like, about the attention span and stuff. I think we're growing up in like a crazy, crazy time because we have so much access to music that never was a thing before. You know what I mean? You kind of had what you heard on the radio or what the guy working at the record shop recommended or whatever, like the coolest looking album cover was, you know? And I think one of the problems with how we're able to access music right now is that, say you hear a song that you really like from an artist, however you hear it, if it was like a TikTok audio or you heard it on the radio or whatever. The problem now is like you can just download that song and you never have to take another look at that artist if you don't want to. Whereas before, if you'd hear a song that you really liked in a movie or on the radio or whatever, you'd have to go buy their record or CD, cassette, whatever. And that would allow you to kind of grow your knowledge of that artist and also hear things on there that maybe surprise you. Because I think a lot of people hear one song and they love the song, so they just save it, and then that's kind of it. And that's how you end up with people who show up at concerts to only see one song and stuff. And I'm definitely not going to go off and just bitch about that, because I think it's a really good thing for artists to gain fans in new and different ways. But sometimes I just worry that people are just kind of picking and choosing like what they want, and they're not even allowing themselves to listen to an album all the way through and hear songs that you probably wouldn't hear otherwise.
Yeah, no, I would say I'm guilty of that. I know I don't do it as much anymore, or I don't listen to those playlists as much anymore, but my Discover Weekly on Spotify, there'd be times where I'm going through that list and I'll listen to, like, I'm doing what I was just sort of ranting about. I'll listen for a minute, and if I don't like it, I'll get to the next one, because I just feel like music that's coming out today, if you're a minute into the song or a minute and a half in, you're probably halfway through the song. And I just feel like it's rare that music that's getting put out today on a level of like an underground artist or an artist who isn't really popular, it's rare that you're going to see some crazy progression in the last 90 seconds of a song that you wouldn't normally, because I've got songs where it's a progression from the start to the finish, but if it's just the same loop for a minute to 90 seconds, I'm on to the next one, unless there's like some really nice songwriting or some lyrics that I'm really liking or something, because I feel like I'm doing a disservice by not trying to find the next best artist or the next best song and things like that.
I think that's fair to say, especially in hip hop, like you said, which I know you do listen to a good amount of, so I'm sure there's a good amount of it in your Discover Weekly. There's almost like a different standard that things are held to, where things kind of have to just like hit you right off the bat. Sometimes it is hard. Finding new music is hard in the sense like you kind of have to weed through some stuff that you just don't enjoy,
Exactly.
I get a lot of songs that are, even if they are like 5 minutes long, 4 or 5 minutes, it's just like the same thing over and over again, and I'm kind of waiting for something to pop out. But yeah, I mean, I won't lie, I've done the same thing, I'm about to talk really stupid for a second, but
Let it fly.
I saw this. It's actually on the Virginia Tech subreddit, I think. That this guy was working on a specific algorithm that he wanted to kind of apply to Spotify. And what it would do is kind of generate a playlist like your Discover Weekly, but it would show you the 15 seconds of each song that it would be most tailored to your listening habits.
Huh.
So it would kind of search through, say the song was 4 minutes long or 3 minutes long, it would search through and find the 15 seconds that it thinks has the best chance of you saving that song.
And is it going based on what specifically for you, or like, because when you said that, I immediately think of the hook or the chorus, because usually that's the catchiest part of a song.
Well, I think he was trying to develop it as like an algorithm specific to you. So It would be like a Discover Weekly, but everything's just a 15-second clip. So if you could hear it and be like yes or no, and want to explore farther, which is cool. But again, it's just like the next step of like, first you didn't have to buy the album if you like the artist, and like now you can just listen to 15 seconds of a song and decide or not. But I don't know. Shout out to that guy. I don't know if it ever went anywhere. I just read he posted this big long thing about it on the Virginia Tech subreddit, and I just thought that was really, really interesting.
Shoot, Spotify might have given him a $20 million deal or something.
Well, I mean, if people love to find music that they like without having to look through, you know? So I get it. But yeah, shout out. Hopefully something came of that.
Yeah. But it's like you said, it just sucks because it's feeding more into that short attention span, that instant gratification, and I don't know. Because, I mean, what I mentioned earlier about listening to the first minute to 90 seconds and then skipping, I mean, I feel like back in the day, somebody was probably doing that with a record. If they were in a vinyl store or something, pick the record out, listen to it. I don't know if they're buying it or if they have somewhere you can listen in store just to try it out or something like that. But then they can just put it away and go to the next one. I don't know.
Yeah, there was no skipping, you know, like you're listening, you just got to put it on. And I assume like the people who would work there would just grab new shit all the time and listen to it and then have things to recommend to people. But yeah, I don't know, but I'm happy to consider myself someone that'll still listen to an album front to back. That's something I don't ever see going away from me. And it's not like I don't think I'm better than other people because of that, but I just feel like some people are kind of denying themselves like maybe some really, really cool music or just expanding their taste just because they don't really have to. They can kind of just, you know, if they have this little corner of stuff that they like, they don't ever really have to leave.
Yeah, plus if you sitting down and listening to an album, I mean, you could learn a lot about artists based on how they structure their album too. And if you're just gonna shuffle it or listen to like 30 seconds of a song and go to the next one because you don't like whoever's featured on that song or you don't like how it's sounding or whatever, you're doing yourself a disservice too. Because I mean, I don't know. If it were me, I would just think about what it is I could possibly be missing by, I don't know, cutting a little bit of time out of listening to it, you know?
So do you think that you've ever missed anything just from cutting a listen short on a particular song?
Definitely. I definitely think I have. And I couldn't name a song right now, but I just know I've had that feeling before where, or maybe I just wasn't paying close enough attention on my first listen to that song. But I've definitely found myself hearing a song once and then hearing it again and having a different experience on the second time.
Yeah, I think that's part of what makes a great album or a great song is you can listen to it a couple different times and get it the second or third time. I have a kind of a bad habit of like when a new album will come out, I'll listen to it all the way through while I'm working or working out or something, and then I kind of just like go away from it for a really long time. But I feel like all the great ones I find myself coming back to, and then I'll get something completely different out of it than I did the first time.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know for a fact there's been albums that have come out in like 2016, and like in 2020, I'm listening to it again and I'm picking up on something that I never noticed before, just because I'm paying a little more, paying attention a little closer. You know what I mean? Because I'm the same way. If a new album comes out, I'll listen to start to finish, but I may be working while I'm listening to it. I'm not giving it my undivided attention. And I think that's where I'll slip up and not, maybe not catch some things on that first listen versus if I were to revisit it a week or so later or a month or 2 years later, you know, pick up on something new.
Yeah, recently I've done less of listening to an album as soon as it comes out, which is something I used to do. Like I would even wait up till midnight and stuff, and more just finding a time where my first listen can be undivided. Even if it, you know, takes me a couple days, you know, like I'd rather do that than like try to force it and listen to it as soon as it comes out and then just end up missing something or end up not enjoying it as thoroughly as I could.
Yeah, I think I've also sort of been doing the same thing. I know, like at college, I was usually staying up late on Thursday nights, and that is when I would be more prone to listening to things as soon as they came out. But I would say one of the reasons I don't do it anymore is because I'm on Twitter a decent amount, but it's mostly just for music and trying to find new music or seeing what people have to say about certain artists or new songs or projects that have come out, and I try to give myself that buffer so that my mind isn't skewed from seeing other people's reactions going into the album or whatever song it is. So if I know so and so's dropping on next Thursday or something like that, unless I'm super into the artist, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait at least a week. Plus, I kind of like, I don't know. This might be like some hater. I don't know. This might sound like a hater, but it's nice to know that you're not. I don't know. For me personally, not being part of that like first week sales number. I don't know. I hate the idea of like being a number. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, you are, because you're listening to it, right? And the artist is still getting that stat, but I don't know. For some artists specifically, I'll wait till after the first week till I give it a listen.
Yeah, I think it's just, for me, it's just whenever it's right, you know. Obviously, if it's an artist I'm not super into, but I like their music, I'll listen to it as soon as it comes out. Like if it comes out on a Friday and I'm working, like I'll just throw it on and try to keep myself at least a little bit current. I also just love to, anytime I like even remotely, especially on new stuff, if I even like remotely think something sounds kind of cool or different, I'll just like the song. And then I can kind of come back later with a little bit more attention put to it. But it's always a good thing to just keep up with the current stuff, you know. I don't want to fall behind. I always kind of want to be searching for something new, something different than what I've already heard before. Not saying that like taking influence and stuff is bad from things. But yeah, I just feel like I'm always just trying to either find something completely different or just find something I know reworked in a completely different way.
Yeah, what you just said about like trying to stay up to date with the new music coming out and stuff. I feel that heavily because when I was in high school and stuff, high school was when mumble like the SoundCloud era, when that was first coming out. It's in so many OGs and old heads and like the hip hop world and everything did not like any of that music. Not a lot of people were giving it any respect at all, or they weren't batting an eye to it. And you look at that genre today, and a lot of that is what was going on 6 years ago. You know what I mean? And when it was coming out, people didn't want to hear it, and now that's all people want to hear. That's what the youth wants to listen to. So for me personally, I'm trying to make my best effort to stay relatively tapped into new music that's coming out, because I don't want to be that person that's like, man, this sounds trash, when in reality it's going to be, that's what's defining the genre 5 years later. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was always like someone who I guess was convinced that there was no good music coming out just because I didn't like what I would hear on the radio. But I feel like once I got to college, I kind of opened up a little bit more to the idea of like searching, and a lot of that had to do with close friends, you know, showing me just like amazing bands and stuff, and kind of just like putting my foot in the door. But yeah, I just never want to lose, like, it's also cool to like kind of dig up new artists, because you never know if you're going to get the chance to see them at some tiny venue, you know, like that's always been something that's like a goal of mine, is to find some artists that I can go see at bars and stuff. And there's like a coolness factor to when if they do like blow up, that you saw them first, but it's more just about like finding something that you really resonate with and seeing it in a really intimate space. So it's, you know, that's part of it too.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. And I mean, I could sort of say that I was in that position when Jack Harlow was coming up, just because I think my first time seeing him was in 2016, and shout out to my cousin Calman. He was rapping at the time in high school, and he put together this local music festival type thing. It was free admission at this park, and Jack came out to that show, and it was all local, like DMV artists in the 703 area and everything. And that was the first time I met Jack, and he went up and performed a couple songs. But seeing then, like, how there was maybe 15, 20 people there, like around the stage and stuff, and now seeing him sell out like these huge, and see him at these festivals with thousands and thousands of people. It's crazy to see. But you're right though about just finding, not necessarily finding somebody for that factor to be like, oh, I was here first, but if it's something that, if you truly like what that person's doing, you know what I mean? That definitely says a lot.
Yeah, I mean, when we saw Jack Harlow, that was a tiny place, and you had already seen him a few times before then. So, but yeah, it's just really about finding some cool stuff that really resonates with you. So, anything else?
Nah, I think we're ready to wrap it up. Thank you everybody for tuning in and checking us out. Like we said earlier, we're going to be uploading every Friday, weekly episodes coming out, and you can follow us on Instagram at goodfridays.co, and our podcast will be dropping on Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere else you guys will be listening to podcasts.
Any last minute shout outs?
Shout out my mom, shout out my dad, shout out my girlfriend, shout out everybody who's tuning in.
Yeah, shout out the listeners.
Yeah. What about you?
Think I'm good.
All right. We will see you guys next week.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.